Hey everyone, it's Dr. Scott here for Healthy You. Today's topic is the glycemic index. So glycemic index is something that maybe many of you have heard about in the past, but maybe don't know much about. So I wanted to take a moment to actually define what the glycemic index is, because understanding the glycemic index is really a majorly key to reducing or eliminating the risk factors for having diabetes, along with a whole host of other chronic diseases. Because we do know that high blood sugar is one of the biggest epidemics that we have today, leading to obviously diabetes, type 2 diabetes, that we're seeing in younger and younger people. They're actually starting to see type 2 diabetes in kids before they're even hitting the age of 10, because of exposure to high levels of blood sugar at a young age that's causing so much damage to their bodies that they are becoming diabetics. So, scary thing. It also predisposes us to all kinds of neurodegenerative conditions, neuropathies, along with increasing our risk factors for a whole host of chronic diseases like unfortunately cancer. And so let's talk about what this glycemic index is. So glycemic index, and by the way, if you've never heard of it, there's a great website, glycemicindex.com, that talks about what is the impact on your blood sugar from a particular food that you eat. So many of you may have heard of the glycemic index before, but it's important to understand what it really measures, right? What they're trying to understand is how fast does your blood sugar raise after you eat a particular food. So if you're doing a comparison, right, if you eat a banana versus broccoli, which one's going to raise your blood sugar faster? Well, comparatively, a banana is high in the glycemic index. So banana comes in, body starts to digest, and all of a sudden, boom, big spike in the blood sugar, and it's floating around, floating around, floating around. The pancreas says, oh, way too much sugar. I need to go and secrete a bunch of insulin. Insulin goes to try and push it into the cells. Then what happens is that the body has a decision to make. If you've already got your cells loaded with energy called glycogen, and the body doesn't need any more, then it has to go and put it someplace, because you're not going to go and just magically have it go away. So if you had too much sugar floating around, all your cells are full, then your body has to store that as fat. Why is that? Because we can't have all this blood sugar come in when our cells are at a steady metabolic state and then put it someplace where there's no room, right? The cells have a capacity. What we want are foods that are low to moderate on the glycemic index. And so that's things like we talked about before, broccoli, right? Broccoli is a very low glycemic index food, which is why you can eat tons of broccoli, stay full, but your blood sugar stays level. So if you have a piece of broccoli, what'll happen is that you'll eat that piece of broccoli, your body has it come in, starts to digest it, and your blood sugar goes, oh yeah, there it is. And there's a little bit of carbohydrate slowly extracted from that over time, but your blood sugar stays nice and level. It's not spiking. So then what happens is your body has time to efficiently use those carbohydrates, no spikes. So then as your body has a need, and we have a little bit of spare room because our body has used up the carbohydrates or glycogen that was stored in our cells, now we can take that little bit of extra floating carbohydrate, stuff it into that cell because there's room, and guess what we didn't gain? Fat. It helps to keep the blood sugar steady, so our body's only using the amount of energy that it needs with no excesses. And hey, guess what? If you're trying to lose body fat and you want to try and create a little bit of a gap, foods like broccoli and the cruciferous vegetables and your leafy greens that are all low glycemic index, they are one of the greatest things that you can do, because what they do is they create that slow, steady burn and actually can create a deficit. Because if you're trying to decrease body fat, then you have to have a deficit. So adding in exercise, adding in strength training, and keeping a low to moderate glycemic index diet keeps the blood sugar real steady, but creates a deficit. So body fat here, low glycemic index diet, body fat stays steadily going on the decline, as long as you have enough fat and protein in your diet to make sure that you don't eat up all your muscle in the process. But that's another time. We'll talk about that in another video. So hope this was helpful. The other measurement here I want to talk about is what's called the glycemic load. And this is where portioning comes into the equation, right? Glycemic load takes a comparison of the amount of carbohydrates, how big is your portion, versus the pace at which your blood sugar is going to spike. Glycemic load is a better overall measure, because if you have a lot of carbohydrates and it's high in the glycemic index, that's a super high glycemic load, and then you're likely to have significant storage because the body's only going to have a little bit of room. You have a big portion, it spikes the blood sugar fast, spills over, that's the term that's used, it's called spillover, when the cells don't have room and then all of a sudden you have fat storage, okay? So we wanna try and make sure that our foods are low glycemic load, low glycemic index, which equals steady blood sugar, steady insulin, decreased likelihood of having any type of insulin resistance, which leads to diabetes, and guess what? We stay healthy. Hope this is helpful. This is Dr. Scott out of here for Health U. God bless.